somebody came to the station and told me that my house was it would be destroyed very soon. So I walked over there and I saw the last minutes of my own house, and it was very, very small before this terrible wall of rock behind it, because you see the wall of the lava flow was probably about 20 meters, but my house was only 6 meters high or something like that. So I saw the thick and big wall behind it, and it came slowly crawling onto the house, and part of it was pushed pushed aside and twisted by the terrible weight, and another part was put on fire right away.
Mitt á natten, den 23. januari, mens alle lå i deres seng, kom en udbrud her på Heimaey. Det var på den østlige side af øen, øst for Albygd. Folk de vågnede op ved larmen fra vulkanen.
Our oldest son woke us up and told us that there was an eruption. I was very tired, and I opened my eyes and I saw that our bedroom was with like red flame. And I said to my son, I'm so tired, I'm going to have a look at it tomorrow. We did learn in schools that the Westman Islands was a volcanic area, but a dead one. But there are known to be here between 50 and 60 craters in the area of Westman Islands. Westman Island, as well as Iceland, is in the middle of the fissure or the crack that goes through the North Atlantic. And we were told that the Westman Islands was the safest ground in the whole world, and there was no possibility of eruption here in the coming thousands of years.
I'm the first person to see the eruption of 1973. I was out there walking with a friend, and my shift on the radio station was out at 12 o'clock midnight. The weather the day before, or this day, had been a terrible day, with hurricane force winds of 80 knots, even more than that, and pouring down with rain. But then at about between 9 and 10 in the evening, all of a sudden all the wind was gone and there was no wind anymore. So we decided on, when my shift was out, to go for a walk. And we walked around the town and then around the coastline, or along the coastline of the island, the northern and eastern part of the island. On our walk, I suddenly saw some cinders. It seemed that it came from a chimney of a house uphill in the island, and at first I just looked and I thought the chimney was on fire, but then suddenly those cinders grew bigger and bigger, and I realized there was something more going on. And then the cinders started to mushroom, coming up like a fountain of fire. And eventually, in seconds, I don't know exactly how long the time took, or how much time it took, but in seconds, the next crater opened downhill to the north and to the northeast, and then the third, and more and more craters opened, until there was a line of fire from the sea and all across the island, and we saw the fires move quickly uphill to the other side, or they disappeared around the old volcano. back home, and we woke up our families, and quickly or very soon the whole town was awakened by the terrible noise. People started to ring up to call the neighbors and so on, and finally people were out on the streets, and it seemed that everybody was reacting very favorably because there was no panic. People just moved away from their homes and they drove their cars or walked down to the harbor. Because of the terrible weather the day before, all the boats, the whole fishing fleet was inside the harbor. And they hadn't yet gone out to the fishing grounds. Therefore, they were intact. And they started right away to move the people away from the islands. At first, there weren't so many going with the boats, but soon people realized there was nothing else to do but just to leave. At this time, the population of this island was 5,200 people, just about. All the people were evacuated right away, except for a rescue crew, well, people like me. I was a radio operator. I had to stay behind to operate the station, because this was a coast station. We had to stay here for our work. To be able to communicate with the boats taking the people away, and also to communicate with other shipping and other coast stations to tell them about the situation and what was going on here. Then the fire department had to be left behind, and the town council, the engineer of the town, and doctors and nurses and so on. The flow of the lava was, well, sometimes when it was fast, it could be about 1 meter a minute, but usually it was a little less. And you didn't see it like, it wasn't like liquid or red hot. Only in the nighttime you saw this red hot color or this red fierce heat inside of the lava. But in the daytime, when the daytime hours, then you only saw a heap of rock slowly rolling your way. The explosions were continuous, like 100 cannons going on all the time. Every second there was a bang, you see, and an explosion. So this was really very, very hard to cope with. It really got on your nerve.
Kort tid efter vulkanutbrudets begyndelse besluttede den islandske regering at stifte en fond, katastrofefond, som fik sine indtægter omkring 1% bruttoskat på, eller 1% skat på bruttoløn til alle, og 2% forhøjelse af omsætning, eller momsen. Endvidere var der nogle andre mindre beløb, som løb i den fra forskellige islandske fonde. Fra de skandinaviske lande, altså fra Sverige, Norge, Danmark og Finland, blev der skænket 100 millioner danske kroner, og dette beløb var omkring en fjerdedel af katastrofefondens midler.
We were there from the town council here, also from Reykjavik. There's a duty in Iceland. Every house is insurance against fire, and that was the amount the people became. Those who lost their houses, they become the same as the house was burned down. The most difficulties and for the problem for the people, the older people, they had small houses, and they got so little money to rebuild the new houses.
Many people had lost all their houses, even all their things, all their belongings. Like myself, there were many others who lost almost everything they had.
We have been living here two eruptions. In the first, 1963, without any warning, we got an island here, about 30 kilometers south of Heimaey, where we are living here. You know, the 15 island groups here, only been living on this island here. And they came just from the ocean without any warning. And it lasted more than 4.5 years. It was amazing to go, romantic to go in the island to the west part of the island and look at the ocean. Always something new seen to admire.
About a cubic kilometer of stuff came out of this volcano out in Surtsey. Quite a few islands were born. Only Surtsey is left, but there were maybe 3 or 4 individual islands born. They were really washed away by the sea, but Surtsey remains. Surtsey was about 3 square kilometers and at a height of 176 meters from the sea level to the top. Now from the seabed, 138 meters below that, it was more than 300 meters in height altogether. Surtsey today is about 1.8 square kilometers.
They tell us that the island is maybe 50% less than before because of the wind, because of the waves, and the stream around the island.
Surtsey is really a living laboratory. And when the lava flow was coming from that volcano, flowing down the slopes of the island to the sea, these scientists noticed that there was a change in the lava flow when the seawater came and or the waves washed a part of the lava. it would be continually changing direction of flow. So they learned it could be done to change lava flow by pouring water on it. And this is just what was done back here 10 years later in the Heimaey eruption. The same scientist who had been out in Surtsey, he had a ship brought here, a pumping vessel. And they started to pump water on the edge of the lava, closing in on our town and our harbor.
Meget hurtigt blev man klar over, at lavastrømmen den truede bygden og også indsejlingen. Man gjorde forsøg allerede i begyndelsen af februar med at pumpe vatten på lavaen ved hjælp af brandsprøjter, og man opdagede hurtigt, at lavaen den størknede hurtigt, og den forsøgte at ændrede derved retning, og man så hurtigt, at det var en måde, man kunne dæmme op for lavastrømmen. Man fik fat i alle de pumper, som fandtes i Island, og man byggede op et stort pumpeanlæg, og senere fik man større pumper fra USA, og da det var på det højeste, der pumpede man omkring 1 kubikmeter per sekund, helt op i 70-80 meters højde.
There were at least a few different crews working on the pumps, and we had fire hoses pumping the water on the lava to cool it down, to be able to alter or stop the flow of the lava. Here you could even walk on top of the lava. If you were careful not to stop for long, then you could even walk on top of it for a while. This rock here is a piece of lava. It was thrown up from the crater in the volcano, and leaving the crater it was liquid, really liquid rock, red hot, and flying all the way here. Going through the air, it cooled a little. The edge or the covering, it was like an egg, and the shell was cool, but inside there was molten rock. Then it landed on the earth and it cooled quickly, and eventually was brought here by the lava flow all the way to this place, about a mile from the crater itself. You see, we experienced many such rock flying in the air when the direction was coming from the volcano onto the town. I mean the wind direction. And so many of these rocks, they really were called bombs, because many of these rocks hit our roofs and would go right through and into the houses, putting them on fire.
En af de ting, som kom sikkert de fleste her, var mest overrasket, det var den gas, som kom op sideløbende med vulkanudbruddet. Gassen var kuldioxid, størsteparten helt op til 97%, og den er tungere end luft, så den lavede sig i kældre og i lavninger og de steder, hvor de laveste punkter. Denne gas var dødsensfarlig, og man måtte omgås den med største forsikkerhed. På grund af den, der døde størsteparten af de få husdyr, som blev tilbage. Endvidere var der rotter, og som i alle andre byer, de blev altså udryddet i denne omgang.
One day, the cellar was full of gas, but we were sitting there on the second floor working, and then one of the technicians, he took a piece of cloth and put it in gasoline and put it in fire and threw it down the stairs, and it was extinguished right away. At this time, a great part of the island was covered with the ashes. Where it was closest to the volcano, the thickness was about 5 to 7 meters. But then in the middle of the town here, it was down to about 1 meter in thickness. We had to move or to shovel the ashes off the roofs of the houses, because otherwise the weight from the ashes would break down the roofs and destroy the houses. There was one crew who did only this, to shovel the ashes away. There was a second crew nailing iron sheet on all the windows that facing the volcano.
Man begyndte at rense byen for aska allerede før udbruddet holdt op, men udbruddet holdt op i juli måned, men man begyndte at rense aska fra byen der i maj måned. Denne plan blev altså anvendt til at køre asken ud. Det var omkring 700.000 kubikmeter aske, som man kørte ud i det område. Området var kuperet. Højdeforskel helt op til 7-8 meter. Sådan at dette landet er nu forholdsvis jævnt faldende ned mod kysten. En del af asken blev kørt til udvidelse af landingsbaner og udvidelse af sikkerhedshaller omkring flypladsen. Der, hvor man ikke rensede asken bort, det vil altså sige, hvor det var mere 2 end 3 meter tykt på åbent område, der har man sået græs. Gjort på den måde, at man har gravet muld op på Sydøen og bredt den ud over asken, og cirka 20-30 centimeters tykkelse, og sået græs i dette. Og derfor ser Eldfell og Helgafell og fjellene her omkring så grønne ud, som de gør.
You know, this is the gate to the cemetery, and the gate itself was partly covered with the ashes, but the cemetery itself was completely covered with a thick layer of ash. About 500 and even more than 500 people from all over the world came here to volunteer working to cleanse the cemetery. Their only earning was a bed and something to eat. And they stayed here for a long time to cleanse away all the ashes from the cemetery. It couldn't be done by heavy equipment. It had to be done with little brooms and little shovels. And it was a slow, hard work.
Meget hurtigt efter vulkanudbruddet upphör, der gjorde man nogle forsøg med at udnytte denne varmen. I løbet af 3 år, der fik man gjort tilstrækkeligt mange forsøg, og man begyndte at udnytte varmen først til opvarmning af sygehuset og senere til hele byen. Det var cirka en 10-års periode, så man kunne opvarme byen med denne varmen. Man gjorde det på den måde, at man lod vatten løbe ned i den flydende lava, som var cirka 30 meter under jordens overflade. Og der omdannedes vattnet til ånga, som blev samlet sammen i nogle betonrør og ledt igennem varmevekslere. Disse varmevekslerne var så forbundet i den anden side til byen, hvor vattnet kom cirka 40 grader ned fra byen og blev opvarmet til 80 grader og sendt ned til byen og ud i husene, hvor det så blev afkølet.
Even today you can go up the hill, up on top of the volcano, and if you scrape off a little piece of the top, you will see red hot rock right there.
No! Oh! Ah, the broly kid!
This concrete pillar is really an electrical pole. We had a power station here, but it was only reserve power. But really our electrical power came from the mainland, and we bought it from the government. And it was taken up to a little vik on the other side of the island, to the north. And from there it was taken in an air line through three wires coming over here. There were 3 different poles also, one up here and 2 on the other side to the east. The height just around us here, I mean on the lava edge, was probably 30 meters. We had a prayer meeting in the Lutheran church, and that night, I think that it was the night that 70 houses were destroyed, and there was a great flow of lava coming downhill across the town. But then this night, or after this night, then the lava flow changed, and instead of coming this way, it started to flow to the southeast, and around the mountain, around the volcano, and out on the sea. Allir þeir sem á drottning Jesum trúa, bæði lærisveinarnir sem hann var með þegar hann bað þessara bænar, og líka við hinn sem höfum tekið trúna fyrir orð þeirra, að við séum eitt með Jesú Kristi, eitt með Guði, til þess að heimurinn trúi, sjái og viti að Jesús Kristur frelsari heimsins. Þetta er grundvöllurinn undir því að við getum boðað Krist á Íslandi. I'm standing here about 20, maybe 25 meters above the place where my house was situated before the eruption. You see, the lava is about 20 to 25 meters in height from the street where I lived. And this is just about the position of my old house. I was born here and I was brought up here. And all my life until the eruption, I lived in this place. People are always afraid there might be a second eruption. Well, we're not afraid of it here, but the scientists, they have to be sure to know if they can know anything beforehand. So we will not be caught by surprise again. And therefore this pillar behind me is a place, an important spot here on the island to tell if there is any tilt in the ground, making it known that there is something going on under our feet, deep, deep in the earth. So there are a few such pillars on different places on the island so that the scientists can really make measurements, and they use their very, very accurate equipment to do this, and they can know beforehand if there is any change. And a warning can be done, letting people know if there will be a second eruption or can maybe be expected. We have sometimes very, very bad weathers here. We have measured wind speeds of 125 knots on the cape on the southernmost part of the island. This kind of wind is really something.
Já, vindhraðinn er mikill og alltaf þegar hvessir, þá hvessir svo mikið hérna. Sérstaklega í austanáttinni og geta farið upp í 100 hnúta hérna, vindurinn. Og upp í 110 mest, sem hefur verið mælt á mæli. Og þá er náttúrulega orðið varhugavert, ýmislegt, geta farið núskeiðis. Kraftmikill vindur þá. þetta var alveg geysilegt brim og maður sá það eftir, það var svo mikið sjórok hérna yfir, þó sé svona hátt. Og eftir að frétti maður það hefði mælst á öldamæli dufli 23 metra aldur og mjög breiðar aldur, þannig að það var kraftmestaldur sem hafði ekki mælst kraftmeiri aldar fram að því. Þetta var 1990. Hérna í Vestmannaeyja hefur komið að skipti þúsundum, en það er tiltölulega lítið utan Vestmannaeyja. Eins og sjófuglum yfirleitt er mjög lítið af endaheimtum. Já, fuglarnir eru merktir með stálhringum fót og þau eru númeruð þessi merki og þau eru sem sagt merkt Náttúrufræðistofnunin í Reykjavík sem hefur umsjón með merkingunum. Já, það er vitað að lundin verður yfir 30 ára eftir þessum merkingum. Ég held að það tala að það sé 10 miljón lundar á landinu. Hvað er mikill hluti í Vestmannaeyjum? Ég veit það ekki. Kannski helmingu, ég veit það ekki, ég veit að giska það.
Puffin is the national bird and the national food of the inhabitants. And through the centuries, we have been hunting the puffins. We eat it boiled, fried, salted, or smoked. It is like the wild taste and little fishy. The numbers of the puffins are growing and growing.
About 3,000 people came back very soon. People started to move here in the month of July. Personally, I and my family moved on the 9th or 10th of November. But the people who had lost their houses, many of them didn't come back. Some of them were afraid to come back, really. They just didn't want to come back because I heard of some of the wives who were really afraid just to stay here. Others had got new jobs up in the main island of Iceland, so they felt it, well, they had nothing to come back for.
För utbrottet har man fått vidta en ny generalplan för Vestmannaeyjar var man hade vidtagit att bygden den skulle utbyggas i väst. Denna generalplan blev taget fram och allerede i mars-april måned ändrade man något på den fordi man mente att det borde vara fler enfamiljehus än man hade i planen.
People were in high spirits here right after the eruption. When they could move back, they were much more fond of the island than before, because they loved the place even more when they came back, since it had been saved, you see. And so they liked even more to stay here and live here. We had a beautiful summer in 1973, and a second very beautiful summer in 1974. So I think this gave people a good hope, and living here was quite good.
I september måned startede man skoler her. Der kom omkring 600-700 mann kommet hjem. Og så smått begynte man at rydde opp i de forskjellige større frysehuse. Og allerede i februar måned 74 var det store frysehuset her nede langs havnen kommet i gang.
Þetta aðeins síðan bara aftur, bim bam bim bim bam, og ekki flýta þér, bara þess að, já. They were landing Kabeline continually through during the eruption. We have a picture of the smoke and the fire coming up from the mountain, from the volcano, the smokes coming up from the water being poured on the lava, and then the smoke coming up from the fish meal factory, all at the same time, you see. So they were landing Kabeline here when the eruption was going full blast.
The damage to the houses and the equipment was very big because one big freezing plant went under lava and several others were damaged. It did take the fishing and the fishing industry in Iceland many years to be okay again. From the beginning of this century, the Vestmann Islands has been the biggest fishery port of Iceland.
They're living in the Vestmann Islands about 4,900 people, and it means that we are about 1.8% of all Icelanders. But though we are just 1.8% of all Icelanders, we export 14 to 16% of all fish from Iceland. And here in the area of Vestmann Islands, you can get any kind of fish except shrimps and salmon.
Den største vekt lagt på at redde havnen med at afkøle lavaen langs indsejlingen. Og det lykkedes, så kan man sige, at havnen er blevet bedre end den var før. På grund af den lavamole, som han har fået udbygget, den er omkring 2 kilometer langt ud fra kysten. Og jeg vil tro, at ingen ingeniør havde fundet på at kunne have idé om at bygge sådan en stor kraftig mole.
The harbor was intact. The lava flow stopped close to the harbor's entrance, and where there was about 800 meters of clearance outside of the harbor, there are now about 150 This makes the harbor much better to enter, it's safer, and once you're inside, you're very safe. We have had a boat measure the wind speed in the entrance of the harbor of 140 knots.
We are now fishing about 150,000 tons of cod, and that is our most valuable stocks. 10 years ago we did fish 450,000 tons, so it means that we are fishing 1/3 that we did fish 10, 12 years ago. Everything here in Westman Islands has something to do with fish. If it were not fish here, there would only be living here 50 people.
During the 158 days of eruption, about 0.25 cubic kilometers of stuff came out of the volcano. If you look at this mountain, you see it was like the height of the mountain and then a kilometer each way square.
Before the eruption, there was just one runway, east-west. So if it was a northern wind or southern wind, it wasn't possible to fly. And they said, you will never ever be able to build a cross runway here on the Westman Islands because you do not have enough of material. But after the eruption, when we started to clean the mountains and the town, we brought the ash up to the runways to make the runways wider and longer for safety for the planes and the passengers, and then we did also build a cross runway.
Before the eruption, we didn't have much building material here. You see, really, we were shoveling our mountains down and taking them to put into roads and buildings. But after eruption, we had a lot of lava and a lot of rock and sand and such things to build houses from, to strengthen the harbor.
And it is so interesting to tell people that 22 years ago, only 22 years ago, this was floating lava.
This eruption lasted for 158 days, and the lava coming from the volcano finally destroyed 417 buildings, and it completely changed the landscape all the way from the hills where it started and down to our little town, and you wouldn't know. I mean, it's so much changed, it's so much higher. The average height of the lava itself is between 20 and 30 meters, and in places it's even higher. And then we have valleys between those hills and those lava flows, and so the landscape is completely changed. We even had 2 square kilometers, and even more than that, added to our island. And now the island is about 13.8 square kilometers in size.
We are often asked, what is the change today compared with the eruption? If you're going to live on a little island like Heimaey, that means a home island, you have to accept the life here. And because of the eruption is a fact, and we have a mountain in the middle of the town. Of course, if you're going to live here, you have to look at the positive things of the eruption, because we know that through the centuries there has been eruption in Iceland every 5th year. Westman Islands is in the middle of the fissure or the crack, so we do not know if another eruption is going to happen. But people keep on living here.